Perfect.
I hope
Right,
you're all
great.
enjoying the presentation.
So, yeah, nice to meet you all. After some
Okay,
technical
perfect.
difficulties,
Yeah, I
we
think
can now start.
yeah, Benny, will
Okay,
you?
first of all, maybe a little introduction about our company. So, who will be giving the presentation today? It will be,
Okay,
on the one
perfect.
hand
Then
side, me, Louis Segers. On the other hand side, it will
I
be
hope
Sander
you.
Allert, that is my colleague. The both of
Perfect.
us, we're working
Right,
at
great.
Lytics. Lytics has
So,
been established,
yeah,
I
nice
think
to meet you
it's
all.
yeah, about a year now, last
Yeah, we
year,
can
June, I
now
think it
start.
was. We're in a total of 11 employees up until now, and we have been established as a sister company of Cubis. Yeah, actually, it's a very useful combination. We were complementary as Cubis focuses mainly on SAP technologies, and Lytics focuses on the Microsoft technologies. Core values: fun is king, people first, knowledge is king. Those are our core values, and we think that those are the most interesting things within your company. Okay, what do? We do practically everything that has to do with data analytics. So that this includes business intelligence, self-service analytics, advanced analytics, and also big data and IoT. So it's very various. The projects that we start are very various. About Sender, so Sender will do the second part. He will be talking about the paginated reports. First, I'll do my part on Power BI governance. Maybe Sander, you can start and give a brief introduction about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm a BI developer working for in Microsoft BI for a few years now. And I love, while I'm mostly active as a BI architect, I also love the hands-on challenges. And that's why I'll be showing the paginated reports after the session of Lou.
Okay, great. Thanks. Then about me, I have about 4 years experience within data analytics, mainly focusing on Microsoft technologies. And I'm also very passionate, exactly like Sander is. Okay, now I think it's time to head over to the actual content. So what we will be talking about today: Power BI governance. It's a quick start. First, make a quick loop to the agenda. I'll start off with a small introduction. Afterwards, the Power BI modes. So which modes how you can actually implement Power BI within your company. So what are the different approaches? I'll be discussing 3 of them. Afterwards, also more explanations about Power BI roles. So what permissions can you actually set? Those are, of course, very important when it comes down to Power BI governance. Next, governance roles and responsibilities. It's actually some kind of template, a way of how you can integrate within your company. It's a very practical example. I also added a lot of tips and tricks into it, so it gets very practical, and you can use some of the content within your company as well. The next part will be about Power BI Desktop, the difference with it with the service portal, and what things that you should keep in mind, the do's and the don'ts. Next, documentation and versioning, which is one of the most important things when we talk about Power BI governance. Next, it's about the Power BI admin portal. Next, I'll also be talking about the Power BI Governator. It's a template that we've been creating within Lytics, and it's a Power BI template that actually supports the Power BI governance within your company. Last but not least, I'll be talking about a process chart, how you can actually create a process yourself within your company on, for example, workspace creation, report creation, etc. Okay, first of all, a brief introduction. Setting expectations. Yeah, the presentation that we're going to show today about the Power BI governance, it isn't a walkthrough. It isn't something that you can literally copy over to your company. Every company has its own needs, its own wants, and of course, it's it's very various. So the thing that I would like you to do is to gather some tips and tricks and to actually apply them within your company. That is the main reason of the main purpose of this presentation. Some recommendations, of course, if you know Power BI already, it's always a plus. Always read through the Power BI community pages. Try to stay on top of your Power BI the newly added features, etc., you can always subscribe to the Power BI blog to get the newest features that are becoming available. Okay, then we're heading over to the different approaches. How can you actually implement Power BI within your company? So how should your landscape look like? There are three different modes that we can distinguish from each other. On the left-hand side, we have the business-led self-service BI. In the middle, IT-managed self-service BI. On the right-hand side, we have corporate BI. What's the difference? Well, the more IT gets control about both the data sources and the creation of reports, the more it gets to corporate BI. The other hand side is when business has the most power and the most saying to do in based on data sources and report creation. What's the main difference? Well, when we take a look at corporate BI, it is the IT department that creates the reports. It's not only the IT department that creates the reports, but it also creates the data sources and maintains the data sources. So all the power is within the IT department. It's only the IT department that does the creation of the Power BI reports. Of course, you need to consult the business for specific to get the content to do a knowledge transfer, of course, but everything that will be created within the Power BI service portal will be created by the IT department itself. This is corporate BI. On the other hand side, when we talk about the business-led self-service BI, it's self-service BI. What does it mean? Self-service BI means that the business will create their own reports. They will do their own analysis. In most cases, it will be an ad hoc analysis. When we talk about business-led self-service BI, it will be the business that creates the reports, but they will also gather their own data sources. For example, it's a very known situation actually. If we have, for example, a yield manager, he just gathers some Excel files, he creates a report up on top of this, and this is his Power BI report. He just does the ETL itself. He cleans the files. He just models the data himself, and he creates the report himself. This is business-led self-service BI. So the power is fully to the business. There's also a mode in the middle. The approach in the middle is the IT managed self-service BI. What's the difference? Well, it will be the business and IT who will be creating reports, but mainly it will be IT who will be governing the data sources. So IT will be delivering the data sources, and up on top of those data sources, you can create the reports. But that's the most important difference. It will be IT that is maintaining the sources. It will be IT that will be delivering you with sustainable sources. Okay. Next, so I just discussed the three different modes, being the ones that are on this slide. What's the difference? We have on the one hand side corporate BI, self-service BI. There are two big distinctions between those two modes. On the corporate BI side, it's IT that is end-to-end responsible. On the self-service BI, the main purpose of doing self-service will be to gather quick insights. It will be the business that can create a quick analysis. They know the content and they can create a very, very quick report. That's the main benefit of doing self-service BI. On the other hand side, when we talk about corporate BI, you need to take into account multiple things. For example, the data quality. The data quality needs to be verified. It needs to be correct at all times. Security needs to be in place just by applying best practices. So based on AD groups, not on personal user accounts. Documentation is in place for all the data models that are part of the Power BI reports, and of course sustainability. It's not about if IT created a specific report, it will be followed up at any point in time. On the other side, when we take it to self-service BI, if someone creates a report, it's his own responsibility, and there isn't someone else that will take it up when a specific person leaves the company, for example. So it's very very important that you mind the difference between the both of these two worlds. Corporate BI mostly focuses on a larger and a very neatly defined audience. For example, C-level management. If we create a report for them, it's mainly, in most of the cases, it will be a corporate BI report because it needs to be correct at all times. It needs to be created according to the latest best practices, etc. Okay, Power BI roles. We just discussed the Power BI modes, so the approaches on how you can integrate Power BI within your company. And now we will be talking about the different permissions that you can be setting. Actually, Power BI, Microsoft has launched 4 different roles that are in place. We have the admin role, the member role, contributor, and viewer role. Those 4 roles, you really need to take you need to pay a lot of attention on those different roles. If you grant someone access to a specific workspace, always start with the contributor role. Why the contributor role? There's a big difference between a member role and the contributor role. And in my eyes, actually, the member role isn't I wouldn't have chosen it like that. I wouldn't have called it a member if I was Microsoft. Why not? Because you need to start from the contributor role. If you make someone a member of your workspace and you assign him the member role, then he can immediately also push your reports to your app. He can not only edit your reports within your workspace, but he can also push the reports that are according to him finished. He can also push them to the app, and that's not in all cases very practical. We also have an admin. He can do everything that he would like to do. So he can add other people with the same rights, etc. He can delete and update workspaces. So he's the admin of the workspace. Then we also have a different role. That's the Power BI administrator. You can see it in the first column. And this is actually a very special role. This has nothing to do with a workspace. This is based on tenant level. So one Power BI tenant always you can always define it on your tenant level, not on a specific workspace. The admin is defined on a workspace. So I also added the slide because the difference is very, very important that you know this. The Power BI admin is on workspace level. The Power BI administrator is on tenant level. So that's the major difference. Power BI administrator is assigned on your Office 365 environment, and he can set different settings within your Power BI environment. For example, he can enable audit logs. He can adjust the look and feel of your Power BI environment within the Power BI service, etc. So he has a lot of different settings that he can adjust over the whole tenant, not only within one workspace. Okay. This is something. This is another slide where we explain the difference. So a Power BI admin has all permissions, but only within one workspace. That's a major difference. Okay. Maybe one more thing. I think we didn't have the time to explain it in the beginning. If you have any questions, you can always write them down within the YouTube chat box, and we will take some time at the end of the presentation to go through them. So it will be talked about at the end of the presentation. Okay, governance roles and responsibilities. So this is actually how you can actually implement it within your company. So this is just an example structure. That is a way of how you can be doing this. So please take note of this and gather some ideas. But this is just an example how you can do this. I've divided this into 3 different governance roles, being a Power BI master, a Power BI producer, and a Power BI consumer. Maybe we can start off with the Power BI consumer. A consumer only views reports. He only consumes reports. It's the end user of a Power BI report. He only views. When we head over to the other section, the Power BI producer, he can actually create reports. He has the knowledge. It's a person with knowledge of Power BI. He can create the reports himself. He also has business knowledge. And his own report will be his own responsibility. That's very, very important. Once again, own report is own responsibility. In the first group, the Power BI masters, that's a totally different story. The Power BI masters, they can also create reports, but the main purpose of being a Power BI master is that you actually maintain the workspace that you're in, that you're assigned to. So you should be looking at data sets that are unused, members that aren't correctly assigned to this workspace, change the security, those things, or maybe unused reports that are barely looked at. All of those things, those are the responsibility of the Power BI master. He needs to make sure that a workspace gets clean, and of course that it keeps on getting clean. Okay, those are the most important things. This is also visualization on how you can translate this to your company. We have one Power BI master. We have several Power BI producers, and we have multiple Power BI viewers. Okay, Power BI master. So I already explained it, what the purpose is of a Power BI master. He can also create his or her own reports. It's not meant to be a full-time job. The only purpose of the Power BI master is in say that he keeps clean the specific workspace that he is assigned to. That is the most important purpose. He also can serve as a second line Power BI consult. So if, for example, if we take a look at this slide once again, if a Power BI consumer has a specific question about a specific report, he can ask a question to the Power BI producer. If he can't solve the problem, then the Power BI producer can ask on his turn. He can ask the question on the Power BI master on his turn, and the Power BI master will serve as the second line support upon these Power BI reports. Okay. Power BI master and Power BI producer, it's very important that they work closely together in terms of governance. They need to. In most cases that we've applied in a company, they also organize some follow-up meetings. So some frequently organized meetings just to share some knowledge, just to share some findings, some things that went well or didn't go well, and it's very important that you do this across all of the different workspaces, so you can actually keep that knowledge and share this knowledge to the rest of your team. Okay, own report is own responsibility. Once again, those four very important pillars. Data quality should be in place. All of your data should be checked and verified with the business. Security, only grant access to the rightful audience. So make sure that everyone that should have access actually has access. A good example for this one is if you have for example, the sales, and you have the group sales in a specific report, and you want to share the same report to all of the different countries that your company is located in. Then, of course, it's very important that you set security based on, for example, the country, that only people in Germany, the salespeople in Germany, they will only see the sales figures from their country and not on the group level. So that's very, very important that you take note of. Next, documentation. You need to create proper explanations and always describe your data model. A tip that I can give you guys is, of course, you can always add a documentation page at the end of your report. And you can add some things as which version of the Power BI report is this, who is some explanations of specific KPIs, because a KPI, it doesn't, in most cases, it doesn't mean exactly the same for all people. For example, a churn rate, it seems pretty straightforward, but it doesn't mean exactly the same for all people within your company. So make sure to add some business descriptions from from the different KPIs. Okay, last but not least, the sustainability. Make sure there is a backup user. So if a report, if a specific employee leaves the company, of course, you still want to have some people that are looking after a specific report, that they make sure that it is still correct, that is still up to date, etc. So make sure there is always a backup user, not only if someone leaves the company, but also during absence, sickness, promotion, holidays, any kind of things like this. Okay, so we discussed it like this. At the bottom, I also mentioned the permissions that you should be setting for each of those governance rules. Power BI rule of the Power BI consumer should be a viewer permission. The Power BI producer, you can choose between a member or a contributor based on the fact if the Power BI producer can also have the permission to publish an app, and the Power BI master should be a member. He, in all cases, he can add other members to the workspace, and he should also have the ability to publish to the app. But of course, we don't see the Power BI role, the admin role. Yeah, this is because the admin role, and this is a slide that I was getting at, it's always IT. The Power BI admin role always will be assigned to IT. Why? No one else except for IT should be able to create a specific workspace. It should be only IT because they need to govern all of the different workspaces together. So it will be in all cases IT. At the end of the presentation, by the way, I've also created a process chart which will make it very, very visually and on how you can ask for the creation of a workspace, how you can start creating a report, what are the different steps that you should be following, and I've got it all into one specific process chart. Okay, so for example, someone created a specific report. For example, the yield manager, he created the report and he wanted to make sure that of course those prices they fluctuate, and he wants to make a specific analysis to make sure what prices they need to set at a specific date and time. So he created this self-service report. It's called a self-service report because he gathered some Excel files and he created the report himself. He's a business people. He's one of the business guys, of course. So that's a self-service report. There are some drivers to turn this self-service report into a corporate report. The most obvious ones I've listed over here on this slide. It should be a very business critical report. For example, this report should be shared to a pretty large audience on a daily basis, for example. Those figures should be correct. Sales figures, they always need to be correct. So that's very business critical. Widespread audience. If it's a large audience, that's always a driver to turn a self-service report into a corporate report. Several departments, so a larger group, a very important group, we're targeting the C-level meetings, for example, a very complex setup. If it's a very technical report, then of course you can imagine there are a lot of different reports that have been created and started as a self-service report. Then the business people, they start complaining. The report goes has a very, very bad performance. It takes ages for it to refresh. In those cases, that's one of the drivers to turn it into a corporate report. Why? It will be IT that can remodel the data model that has been created by the business. It will be more performant. DAX measures can be rewritten, etc. So it will be made a lot more performant and according to the best practices, of course. So that's also a very important driver to turn it into a corporate report. Okay. How you can do this? So the last slide was what are the drivers, but this is actually about how you can convert it into a corporate report. Data sources, so the Excel files, it shouldn't stay Excel files that are loaded into the Power BI report. No, it should be a very sustainable source. For example, tabular model, data warehouse, etc. This should be the source of your Power BI report. Report layout. Of course, you should be starting from a specific template that makes it very, very, that all reports exactly look the same. So some things that are already within your template, that is very, very important that you start off with this template. Data model, I already explained this, recreation of the data model, DAX formulas to make it a lot more performant because business people, they're very likely to make the formulas work or find some kind of workaround to make it work, but it's in most cases not the most performant way. Documentation is key. There always need to be knowledge transferred between the producer and IT. Okay, then Power BI Desktop and the Power BI Service. What are the biggest differences, and what are tips and tricks on each of them when it comes down to Power BI governance? So first of all, the Power BI Desktop. always start creating your report from within the Power BI desktop. In any case, start from a designated template. Always start from Power BI desktop. Never create a report within the Power BI service. And why? Because in most cases, you wouldn't be able to download it after you've created it in the Power BI service. It needs to be published once to the Power BI service, and afterwards, you will be able to download it afterwards. Um, do not uh, do not modify existing reports in the Power BI service. If you would like to modify an existing report, always download the report, open it in your Power BI desktop, make the adjustments, and afterwards publish it to the designated workspace afterwards. This makes also the versioning very clear, but in most cases, and that's the most important thing, you won't be overriding someone else's work. So that's also very important to do this. Making changes to an existing report, yeah, I think I've already made that point clear. Okay, data sources. I think most of you guys already know this, but Power BI has a ton of different data sources. I think there are over 80 different kinds of sources. That's quite a lot of different data sources that you can integrate within one report. But of course, there are some guidelines, some things that you should be taking into account. This is stated by Microsoft actually. In most cases, try to use cloud sources and prefer. They're always preferred over on-premise sources. Why? You simply don't need a data gateway. That's one of the biggest advantages, of course. Yeah, one of the easiest ways to translate an on-premise source into a cloud source. Those Excel files that you will be reading into your Power BI, you can simply store them on a OneDrive or a SharePoint instead of doing it locally. So then Power BI can always connect to them. Yeah, and this is one of the most trickiest parts, I think. You can reuse a Power BI dataset. So what is reusing a Power BI dataset? You first create a report in your Power BI desktop. Afterwards, you publish it to the designated app workspace onto the Power BI service. And of course, while publishing it, you always create a specific data set. You don't simply publish a report. There is always a data set that is closely attached to your report. This specific data set, you can make it available to other people, to some of your colleagues, for example, and they can rely upon your created model, the model that you created for your report. This is a very interesting one. What are the main advantages for this one? Yeah, if you do a complex setup within your Power BI report, you make a very complex data model, it can be reused. You don't have to do any rework at all. There isn't any dataset cluttering. It's this one and the same Power BI dataset that can be reused. It can be brought up to date. You can make changes to this Power BI dataset. It's also called the golden Power BI dataset. So this actually means this is the most important one, the Power BI dataset that everyone should be using. You can make some changes to it, but it's only one person that, of course, can make those changes, and those changes will be pushed to all of the other reports that are relying upon this same golden dataset. So that's actually a great advantage of using a golden data set. Also, that's the last advantage of this golden data set. You only need to refresh it once. If it's an import, for example, you only need to refresh it once, and afterwards, all of those reports that are relying upon this data set, they will be brought up to date. You can make it very easy for your colleagues. You can label specific Power BI datasets. You can label them with a promoted label or a certified label, indicating that they can use this Power BI dataset to their for the creation of their own Power BI reports. So that makes it very, very easy. That's one of the Power BI settings that only a Power BI administrator can enable or disable, by the way. I'll be talking more about the other Power BI administrator settings at the end of the presentation, by the way. Okay, data source direct query versus import. Always start with import. Why? Yeah, it's also a best practice stated by Microsoft. You only need to load in the data once. Afterwards, the performance of your report itself, so the rendering of your visuals, it will be instant. The difference, of course, is when you use import mode, you will load in the data within your report. It will be taken into memory of your report. And on the other hand side, if you use direct query, every interaction that you do with your that you make with your report will trigger a query that will be sent to the underlying database. It will be gathering the data at that specific moment. So there won't be any data that will be loaded into the memory. Okay, so always start with this import mode. Usually better performance. It's also not possible to switch from import to direct query. That's not possible. It is possible to start off with direct query and afterwards change to import. But if I can give you one advice, in most cases, uh, yeah, especially when it isn't about big data, always start off with an import and take your chances afterwards with the direct query. Okay, data gateway. This is necessary for on-premises sources only. Always check your credentials. If you set credentials for an on-premise source within your Power BI desktop, you create a report, you set credentials for your on-premise source. Those credentials, after if you publish the report to your app workspace and you would like to refresh the data set that is linked to this report, it will go over the data gateway, and it won't be your credential that you've stored within your Power BI report. It will use the credentials that are indicated on the data gateway itself. So the data gateway will just simply override the credentials of your Power BI report. So make sure that they actually work before sharing your reports. Do not use personal mode. This is, of course, an interesting one as well. Use a service account. There isn't any password that will be expiring. If someone leaves the company, that doesn't really matter because you're relying upon a service account, and you can change the exit of this service account itself as well. Scheduled refresh. If you have if you don't have Power BI Premium, you can refresh your reports up to 8 times a day. You can do it up to 48 times a day if you have Power BI Premium. Yeah, that's a very interesting one. Mm, yeah, there are some interesting features as well. If there are some failures, yeah, after 4 consecutive failures, the dataset won't be refreshed on a schedule anymore, so it will be simply disabled. You can send some notifications when a dataset fails to refresh to your email, so you can immediately check it if something is wrong. Okay, the Power BI service once again. You have actually three different places on the Power BI service portal. I've been talking about workspaces, but I forgot to give you all the definition of a workspace. I'm pretty sure that most of you guys will already be aware of the definition of a workspace, but a workspace is actually an online place where you can collaborate on a specific project. You can store files, Excel files, you can store Power BI reports, dashboards, etc. On within this workspace, and you can collaborate with your colleagues. You can grant them permission to also join your workspace, and you can collaborate within one specific workspace. This is the main purpose of a workspace. You have three different types within the Power BI service. You have a My Workspace, you have an App Workspace, and you have an App. I'll be starting with the My Workspace. I'll explain this one first. A My Workspace, every free user has a My Workspace. It's the only workspace that a free user will be able to see. If you are a pro user, you can also join more workspaces, as many as you would like to actually. The My Workspace is only serves as your own kind of sandbox. It's your testing environment. If you create a report first, publish it to your own workspace before sharing it to other workspaces. It's your own testing environment. An app workspace, on the other hand, is is the exact same thing, but it's for pro users. Pro users can create additional workspaces next to your own workspace, and in most cases it's concerning a specific project. So it contains several files, several reports, but it all has the same link. For example, a specific project or a specific topic or a specific department. That's the most well-known purpose of creating a new workspace. Also, there's 4 different types of permissions. You can assign them on this kind of workspace as well. I already explained them: the admin, member role, contributor role, and the viewer role. In most cases, by default, every pro user can create a new workspace. In most companies, it should be disabled that everyone can create its own and known dedicated workspace, of course, because it's very hard to manage them if everyone can create a workspace. You can simply disable this feature within your admin tenant settings. An app workspace, if you give someone access to an app workspace, you give him actually access to all the dashboards, all the reports, all the data sets. So take this into account when you add someone to your workspace. It's not, you don't just simply provide someone access to one report. No, it's to the whole workspace and everything that is in this workspace. Okay. The app workspace, I already explained this. Within our practical example, with the Power BI master, producers, and the viewers, it will be the Power BI master role that is in charge of the maintenance of a specific workspace. Some tips and tricks that you can use. You can always add a little description for each of the workspaces. For example, you can add a goal. Why has this workspace been created? Who is the Power BI master of this workspace? Who is the backup master? Some things like this. Everyone can see this description and can immediately take contact with the correct people. It's very important that you take pay a lot of attention on your naming conventions, because if you start using Power BI, it won't take long until you have created hundreds and hundreds of different workspaces. So it's very important that you hold on to a very specific naming convention. Okay. Then there also is a difference between an old workspace and a new workspace. I'm not quite sure about the date when new workspaces were introduced. I think it was somewhere in the middle of last year. But you can simply upgrade your old workspaces to new workspaces. Power BI has launched it as a feature as well now, and there is a very big difference between the two of them. The quickest way of knowing if a workspace is an old one or a new one is by clicking on the 3 dots, and you see the different settings over there. With the new one, you only have the availability to choose for the workspace settings and the access. On the old one, you have several options. So that's the quickest way you can check it out yourself without being a Power BI administrator, because he can see it in a more clear way. Why do I actually bother you guys with the difference between an old and a new workspace? It's exactly the same, you would think, but it's very important that you know that an old workspace, it used to be up until somewhere in the middle of last year, if you create a workspace in Power BI, you also create a calendar, you also create an agenda, you create actually a separate Office 365 group, and this immediately, of course, clutters your Office 365 landscape. It's not only a Power BI workspace that you have created, but all of the different things that are attached to an Office 365 group as well. So that's very, very important to know. And why? If you delete the Power BI workspace, the old one, you will be deleting all of the attached objects as well. For example, it can be a SharePoint group, a calendar group, an agenda, file storage. Any linked object will be deleted immediately. So that's a very, very important remark that I would like to make. So always try to upgrade your workspaces to the newest version. Also on the old workspaces, you can only assign access on user level, not on AD groups. That's a very useful feature that they've added to the new workspace, and that isn't available for the old ones. The last one is there's a permission distinction between the old and the new one. You only have an admin and a member. And I think it's pretty clear why they created a new one as well and changed the permissions along with it. With the old permissions, everyone that had access to a specific workspace, he could in any case publish the content to the app as well. There wasn't any access that you could grant someone without him being able to publish to the app. So that's something that they fix now by introducing the new workspaces. All the new ones, yeah. Always try to link your security to an Office 365 group. The ones that you or want, the ones that you actually should be creating are the mailing enabled security groups, because you can also enable mailing. You can also send mails to all of the participants within this group. That's something that you just need to take into account. App workspace definitions, I've added this over here as well. I've talked about naming conventions. How can you actually apply them within your company? I'll give you some examples. What I would do in most of the cases, I would split workspace into IT workspaces, and SS stands for self-service, by the way, SS workspaces. And the IT workspaces are actually corporate BI reports that are placed within this within this workspace. The self-service workspaces, these are meant to these are especially focusing on the business people, so they can create their own reports. They can publish it to a self-service workspace, but everyone will know that this is a created report by the business and not by IT. So it's not a corporate BI report. Workspace environments. There are several ways on how you can do this. If you create a report, of course, it isn't immediately finished for launching within your production environment. That's why I think it's useful to also talk about the environments. There are several options like the ones that I illustrate over here. The most frequently used is within your Power BI workspace. This will serve as your dev or your QA environment. And if you publish those reports within the same workspace, for example, you can publish them to the app, and the app will serve as your production environment. This is one of the solutions. Another solution is that a workspace serves as your dev and QA environment once again, and you need to transfer them to a production environment workspace afterwards to actually make it available for all of the end consumers. So there are literally a lot of different options, but I would stick to the production environment will be the app, or a separate production environment serving the workspace. Okay, this is an example of how you can be naming your workspaces. Workspace name. So at the start, you can see, is it an IT workspace or is it a self-service workspace? Afterwards, you can add the environment name, for example, dev, QA, or production. Next, the department name, for example, finance, HR department, any other department. And then a subdomain topic or a specific project name, for example, FPA, which stands for financial planning and analysis. So this is one of the ways you can actually integrate your naming conventions. It's very, very clear what are reports actually about within this specific workspace. So that's a very good way to choose your names from. Okay. Also, the report names themselves. Make sure that that you choose a very functional name. Please don't call it test, because there will be 300 other reports within your company that will be called test, and also the data set that you will be publishing to the Power BI service will also be called the exact same name as the report that you've published. So the data set will also be called test. So always think of a good name that actually describes the content of your report. Then the apps. This is the third version of the Power BI service. So we had the My Workspace, we had the App Workspaces, and then thirdly we have apps. This is actually the production environment that I was talking about. This is how you are willing to share your reports in the Power BI service portal to your audience. So this actually contains the finished reports. You can make a sub-selection of your reports within your workspace and you can publish them to the app. It's as simple as that. It's just a simple sub-select of all of the reports within your workspace. You can also adjust the styling. You can also set the security on the app, and it can differ from the security from the workspace. Someone that has that doesn't have access to the workspace, to the edible so he can't edit a report. He can view a report if you add him to the permissions on the app section. Okay, why apps? That's a good question actually. In premium license model, all of the normally you need a Power BI Pro license in all cases if you would like to view a shared report. In all cases. In most cases, you publish the report from your Power BI workspace to the app, and then it becomes available for a larger audience. All of those people, the larger audience, they all need a Power BI Pro license. They need to pay for the license. Otherwise, they won't be able to see it. Even if they have access, they won't be able to see it. If you have Power BI Premium, you will be able to share the report within the app to all of your colleagues of the whole company actually, and everyone will be able to see the report if they have access with a free license. So that's one of the big advantages of the premium license model, especially if you're having a lot of Power BI users or end consumers. Provide one validated version is the finished version. It has been verified by everyone. It passed the dev environment. It passed the QA environment. It has been verified by the business, and it's available for the end consumers within the app. So it serves actually as a production environment. Share and report once again. First, create a report in Power BI Desktop. Afterwards, publish it to an app workspace on the Power BI service, schedule data refresh, and make sure that it works. If you need to make use of a data gateway, make sure that it works. So schedule a data refresh and test it, and afterwards share it as an individual report, or in most cases, publish this to the app. Okay, then sharing reports. I already explained it, I think. It's a best practice to do this based on AD groups, setting permissions. Why? It's actually, yeah, it's apart from your workspace access. So it can be IT. It's under the governance of IT. And if someone, for example, there's a new colleague of you joining the sales department, you can ask IT to add him to one workspace, to one AD group, and he will immediately have access to all of the app workspaces. To which a specific AD group has access already to. So that's very easy to manage in that way. It will take longer because you need to ask IT, but you can track everything down. And in my opinion, it's actually a no-brainer. You should do this in practically all cases. The only upside from using individual user permissions is because it's very fast, and it can be useful if you would like to add someone for testing. But still, I would strongly suggest to always rely upon AD groups, and you can create specific AD groups for each workspace for every role. Okay, some takeaways now. What you shouldn't be doing when you share reports. Yeah, never share your PBX files over mail network drives. Always share them within the Power BI service portal. Otherwise, the Power BI report will be updated. You will be looking at the deprecated version. It's not a good way to share it over mail. Never grant everyone permission to access your workspace, because granting access to the workspace will make this person eligible to actually edit a specific report. So make sure to think through your permission settings, and don't add everyone to the workspace, and only add them to the app, to the finished app. Don't use my workspace for sharing. It's only a personal sandbox. I think that's a very clear point. Never publish to the web. If you publish to the web, everyone yeah, not only people within your company but also people out of your company will have access to the report that you've been publishing to the web. It's simply an URL. There won't be any security that will be in place there, so it's very, very dangerous if you publish the report to the web and share the URL. I know in several companies they do this, and they find it very they think that it is very useful to do, and they can immediately share it and just copy paste the link and send it over by mail, for example. That's the worst best yeah the worst practice that you actually can think of. So never ever publish the report to the web. Yeah, some RLS, row level security, that's already a little bit more technical, but always make sure that within your report as well, if it needs to be user specific, you can also imply row level security, and you can build it within your data model. Enable reshares. If you share a report, yeah, just deselect the first two options. Why? Especially the first one. If you allow someone to share your report, he can share it to everyone that he would like to share it to. So make sure that this tick box is unchecked. The second one can be very useful for your golden data set. If you would like to make your Power BI data model available for other persons, for other colleagues, you can tick it. You can tick the second checkbox. But in all other cases, if they can't use the underlying data model, just untick it. So make sure by default they're all checked. So make sure that you take a good look at these settings before you share the report. Okay, documentation and versioning. Always start from a template. I already explained this earlier. What things can you do to add more documentation? You can add a documentation page at the end of your report. You can include a report summary, report creator, some additional KPI explanations or calculations. And that's also a very interesting one. The last two tips: add a URL to an in-depth documentation. That's very easy to do, and yeah, the documentation will be in reach immediately. But the second tip as well, I integrate it in practically all of my reports that I create now. I use the information bubble overlays, and I think I've added an example of these ones. Yeah. You can, for example, on the right top corner, I think it is, yeah, you can click the information button, and then actually some overlays pop up indicating and giving you more explanations about what a KPI is about, what a visual actually is trying to show you, and things like this. So it's very, very practical, and of course it needs some effort. It requires some effort for you to create them and maintain them, but it's still a very good idea to do, in my opinion. Some other things on the documentation part: you can always use comments in decks, use a field property, use Azure Data Catalog. Power BI Helper is also a very useful third-party tool. Make sure to check that one out as well. It's created by Radakat. And yeah, give meaningful names to applied steps in your query editor. In most cases, it will just simply say filtered rows. Yeah, just name it, so your colleague will be very, very thankful that you rename your different steps, I think. Versioning, yeah, this is one of the things, in my opinion, that is still missing within the Power BI service portal. It's not still possible. It's not possible to do versioning, except for if you use an old workspace and you use the trick with OneDrive, which I wouldn't be doing as well. You can use versioning. How can you do this? You can actually export your over PowerShell. You can export your Power BI reports and even your data sets on a regularly basis. For example, daily, weekly, or monthly, or anything like that. And you can upload them, for example, to a blob storage. And then you will be able to, in all cases, you will be able to yeah. Trace back the figures on a specific Power BI report on a given date. Especially for SOX reporting, it's very important that you can replicate the Power BI report of your figures from, for example, last week. Okay, the last part of the presentation, one of the last parts of the presentation, Power BI admin portal. I already explained that there are some tenant settings that you can set. These are only the settings that you will be able to see if you are a Power BI administrator, which it's assigned on Office 365 level, not on a lower level. So it's of your Power BI tenant that you are a Power BI administrator. What are the most interesting ones? I've chosen some of them just to make sure that you are aware of them being there. Mm, yeah, audit logs. How frequently are reports being used? That's of course one of the most straightforward things that you will be able to see if you're a Power BI administrator. You can also see these if it's enabled by your Power BI administrator. You will be able to see the usage report of each of your Power BI reports. So you will be able to see how many times it was consulted by your colleagues, when was consulted. Of course, not on a user level, but on it's aggregated. Those reports are aggregated because of course we need to think of GDPR. Okay, some more interesting features. Yeah, maybe I can go because we have a pretty limited time slot and I've been talking for a while now. I'll go a little bit quicker over these tenant settings. The most interesting ones, and also this presentation, it will be it will be recorded on YouTube at the moment, so you will be able to check it afterwards as well. So make sure to check the most interesting tenant settings over here. Some of them I would like to talk about. Yeah, especially this one. It has been released. I think it was at the end of last year only that it has been released. If you have a lot of sensitive data, you can also make your users not be able to export your data, your underlying data. That's a very interesting feature, but of course you need a specific license for that one. It may be or may be not included in your current Office 365 license, but it's a very interesting feature that you can block your end users of exporting your underlying data. Enable some app source applications. That's also very interesting. There have been built a lot of different Power BI templates by the community, and as you all know, Power BI has a very, very strong community. You are able to download a lot of them, and it's for free as well, and it's been built on several different sources. So make sure to check them out as well if you would like to gather more insights about a specific source. First, always check the app source. This is for Power BI administrators only. You can have an overview of all of your workspaces, which are the new ones, which are the old ones, but especially which of those workspaces don't have an admin link to it. Those workspaces are, of course, your orphaned workspaces. That's a very handful tool a very handful way to actually know what workspaces aren't used or aren't under surveillance of any of your colleagues. Audit logs, also very interesting. You can check out for every single user who has been viewing which report, who has been editing which report. All of those things, they are available. You you don't. You also need some additional rights for this. It's the view only audit logs, or the audit logs role in the Exchange Online. You don't have enough if you are the Power BI administrator, but make sure that you check it out. If you have those rights, it's very useful, this information, and you can actually check for every single report what happens with it, and how it's being used. Some custom branding. This is actually our Lytics Power BI service portal. You can choose for your own images. You can brand it to your own preferences, that you can adjust the look and feel, and it can look something similar like this one as well. Then the Power BI Governor. I think we're almost out of time. I'm going to quickly show you guys this one in a minute. What is the Power BI Governor? The Power BI Governor is actually a Power BI platform that we've been created within Lytics. It integrates three different sources, being the Graph API, Power BI API, and the Power BI audit logs. What does it provide you with? It provides you a very clear overview of both your Power BI environment as your Office 365 landscape. And it offers you, of course, different answers on Power BI adoption. It's very useful for workspace governance, activity tracking, and so on. I'll take 1 minute. I think we'll have still 1 minute to show you guys how it actually looks like. I have it over here. Yes, this is actually how the template looks like. It provides you with an overview of the Power BI environment, but also the Office 365 environment. So, for example, on the left-hand side, you can see that within our Lytics tenant, we have 36 workspaces, this many dashboards, this many data sets, this many reports. On the right-hand side, you can see all of the different AD groups, being 27 at this specific moment. We have 10 different licenses and 37 different license service plans. I'll show you a very quick demo of how it looks like. If you would like to have more information about how it works and how you can use this in your company, you can always contact me or one of my colleagues, of course. For example, you have a menu where you can see all of the different workspaces and how many data sets or reports that are linked to each of those workspaces. You can do this on a report level as well. You can see what are the most interesting, the most all of the different reports that are linked to a specific workspace, and of course it's all interactive as well. You have embedded links as well, as you can see over there, which will take you to the service portal itself. We also have this for data sets, etc. Data refreshes we also have over here. So the amount of data refreshes that succeeded, that failed, the average durations, and it's also cross workspace. It's very important to notice. You can check this in the service portal itself, but it's not cross workspace. Users we have as well. User management. Let me quickly first show you the activities. This is being sourced from the Power BI audit logs. For example, workspace activities, all of the activities, for example, within this specific workspace, this amount of times a specific user viewed a report, and all those kind of activities. So get a specific data source, get a view dashboard, and all those kind of things. What is the most important thing, and what actually is the most value within, what brings the most value within this template, is if you take a look at the last section, which is the user management. One of the most interesting things, next to, of course, managing your Power BI governance, because it's a very clear overview of what reports are in which workspaces, which data sets are failing, etc. All of the things like this. But the most important thing, in my opinion at least, is when we take a look at the licensing overview. So, for example, we have a licensing overview over here. We also have a filter pane. It's being filtered on my user now. You can also do it for everyone. You can see all the different groups, all the different names, etc. If I only filter report upon my user, then you can immediately see what different groups that my user is a part of. And the most interesting thing is, if we take a look at the Power BI licensing part, and we can, for example, see all of the different activities. We can do a select all. These are all the different activities by the amount you can see over here on the left hand side, and on the right hand side you can see all of the different licensing. In the user details matrix, you can see the amount of users that has a pro license assigned, the active Power BI users, and the pro trial users. What is the most interesting thing now? Well, we can actually see, if we deselect this one and we take a look at, for example, the view report activity, you can immediately see all of these users have a pro license assigned to them, but there's one user that isn't recognized as an active Power BI user. So what does this mean? Based on the selection of your activities over here, which is in this case view report, there is no activity that is linked to this specific user. So this user didn't view any reports over the selected period of time. So this actually triggers you. This actually gives you the action to go and verify, does this user actually need Power BI Pro license? If you do this within the whole of your company, within your whole company, of course, then it will give you, my opinion is that it will give you a pretty astonishing overview of the Pro licenses that are assigned to users, and the number of active Power BI users. All right. Okay, that's everything.
All right.
Yeah,
we
maybe.
gotta start wrapping up, Lou. It's
okay. I only got the last part now. The last part is about this one. Maybe I can quickly show this one for 1 minute and then I wrap it up.
Yep, sure.
Okay, perfect. So this is actually the service, the self-service process flow that I was mentioning about, and this is actually how it can look like if you would like to make it to actually stabilize your process within your company. So if someone would like to create a report, he always needs to follow a specific path. Also, one of the triggers will be, okay, is there a suitable workspace where I can publish my report in? If there isn't, okay, then we need to create this workspace, and you can attach a link to this. You need to, for example, based on your ticketing system, you need to create a ticket in Jira with these specifications. So this is just a template on how you can facilitate the use of Power BI within your company. Okay. I think this was the last slide. I think I hope it was very useful for you guys, and I hope you can gather some tips and tricks from the whole presentation. If you still have some more questions, I think there will be now a Q&A session, a very brief.
Yeah, we're already over time.
I thought
so. The questions, there were a few questions, but the questions are pretty much answered, or the question was asked before you started into diving into that content. So there's no other questions. So that means that everything you told us was very clear.
Okay, great, thanks. I think that what will be the next part then? We'll be taking a break, or we head over to
that means that we're having a short 10-minute break to allow people to get a cup of coffee, stretch their legs, get some air, and then we will kick off for session 2 in 12 minutes. Yep.
Okay, perfect, great.
Thank you, Lou, for presenting.
Yeah, your pleasure.